TTJ Friday Night Live. How's everybody doing tonight? Listen, it's been a week, right? My week has been amazing. I'm just really happy to be at Friday Night Live. I'm happy to continue this reset alignment reset series. I'm excited for TTJ to be doing its thing and continue to grow. And I'm excited that we are in session three of a four-part alignment reset series. This week, I don't know if you caught it, but we had an excellent guest on, Courtney McDermott. She was powerful, right? And I hope you caught that episode. If you didn't, go back and watch it on YouTube, in any of the RSS platforms, and check that episode out, man. She's a powerful human being. And so we are here, Friday Night Lives, and I want to say thank you for being here. If you see the recording or you hear it on the podcast, thank you for listening. We know the honor and joy it is to be able to do something like this. So thank you very much. So alignment reset series session three, right? But before we move forward, I want to come back to where we left off, or go back to where we left off, right? So where we left off last week, session two, it wasn't just a conversation, I would say. In that conversation, it came with discipline, and that matters because, if this work is going to mean anything real in life, it's you got to do the work, right? So last week we talked about what it means to be in between identities, right? And to be in between identities, not as a problem, right? Not as confusion, but as, it's a real season in people's lives. It's a real season where the old way of operating no longer fits and the new way hasn't really fully taken shape yet. And the practice I invited you to, really invited you into, and it wasn't about changing anything. It was really truly about noticing, right? Noticing where you were still relying on what's familiar instead of what's aligned, or noticing where you've been or might have been trying to stabilize yourself with the old labels, old identities, the old explanations of who you are, or like really the old patterns. And you do that just because that's a world that feels familiar. It just feels known. All right. So I want to ask you, did you notice it? All right. Did anything show up for you in the week that you noticed where you may have caught yourself reaching for what was familiar, what was practice, instead of staying with actually what's true for you to connect with the identity that you're living into, right? And at this point right here, there's no right answer, wrong answer, right? So just the fact of you noticing that you didn't notice, hey, that's still awareness, right? And right there is the work, okay? Now, because what that practice does, I do it in my own life, right? And so what it does, it really starts to loosen the authority of the old identity, right? Right now, what you're looking to and listening to is a person in the middle right now, stepping into who I'm becoming in real time, y'all. All right. So that practice, it starts to losing the authority of the old identity. And what I come to continually realize, it's not by fighting it, and definitely not by getting rid of it, but by seeing it clearly, the awareness, right? And this is where I want to begin tonight. Because once you're aware that the old identity no longer fits, and once you're willing to be in the in between without rushing to define yourself, or notice that something else really starts to happen in that space, right? So in my experience, what you do is you begin to feel a pull. You begin to feel a pull forward, and not necessarily toward a specific outcome, not toward a finished picture that we may have in our heads that, this is the future that I want, but it's just a pull, right? It's a pull forward. And it's really toward a way of being that feels larger than what you've actually known yourself to be. All right. And this, I would say, this is where it kind of gets interesting, right? Interesting, right? Because at the X moment, in that exact moment, that pulls shows up. What then happens? That pull is showing up, right? What then happens is the resistance shows up too. Man, resistance is a beast. Okay, and I'm really living that world right now. You know, connecting to the future identity. It's pulling me forward, moving me out of the in between space. But what continues to show up is there's a resistance to what that is, right? The future, the new identity. And I'm doing that, and I think last week I talked about I'm building a media company now, and Faye is my mom's middle name, so that's how that name came up. So I'm building FAYEWAY Media under the Oriance Group, and I can feel the pull of what it's becoming, right? I feel that. And the scope of it is bigger than I originally imagined. The conversations that I have are bigger than I imagined. The partnerships are, I didn't imagine the partnership that I would have. And I know that if we continue to stay on this course, the impact will be bigger. And at that same time, I can feel the old identity trying to stay in control of what? The present me, right? And it's not by dragging me back to the past, but really by continuing to run things the way I was used to, or the way that it always has, right? And this is where I believe people misunderstand fear. So fear, if you ever heard the acronym, fear is false evidence appearing real. Fear doesn't show up here because something's wrong. Like sometimes we get that emotion and then we like move it to an intellect like something's wrong. So it doesn't show up there because we think something's wrong. Fear shows up because the past identity is trying to interpret a future it doesn't yet have the capacity to manage. It's bigger than who we are right now. The future is. It's looking at something larger than its current operating system and trying to make sense of it, basically. And what it's trying to make use of or sense of is using old ways of being, old rules, right? And that's why fear, it feels convincing in this in-between season, right? And it's not irrational, but what it is that it's an outdated identity, right? So the old identity isn't, what it is doing is saying, slow down. That's what it's telling you when that fear shows up or those emotions show up of the uncomfortableness or comfortability, whatever you want to call it. The old identity is really telling you to slow down, be careful, don't get ahead of yourself. Make sure you know how this turns out. The old identity, it doesn't want certainty. What the old identity wants at this point is control. What it wants to do is manage the scale of what's forming using familiar patterns, right? So the future, though, the future self, it doesn't operate that way. The future self isn't asking you to control the outcome. It's asking you to really, truly expand your capacity. And it can feel visceral, I believe. In my experience, that's what it feels like when you're expanding your capacity, when you don't know exactly how things are going to turn out. There's almost like a visceral feeling right there when you're doing that. Expansion really, it feels threatening to an identity, the old identity that was built to survive, though, right? And the old identity was built to survive, but not to scale. So that's where fear shows up, and not because the future is unsafe, but because it's larger or bigger than what the old identity knows how to hold and take care and take hold of, right? It doesn't know how to do it. And this is the moment where really truly choice, it comes alive, it comes online, right? And you don't eliminate fear here. You just recognize it. You stop letting it decide. You step or see the fear. This is basically just a warning sign, right? It's a signal, right? And I've talked about this in past podcasts. Like those emotions, they're signals, right? You don't let them control you. You just become aware of what those are, signals, right? So it's a signal. And that fear is basically a signal that you're stepping into something that exceeds your old way of being, right? And right here in the space, this is where kind of identity becomes a practice or becomes practical. And in that space, you still have to do the work, right? I still show up, I still take action, but I'm no longer trying to force outcomes or dominate the process at this point. So I stay connected to the why, right? And this is one of the things that continually pushes me forward when that fear tries to show up and tries to dominate, right? So I stay connected to the why I'm doing what I'm doing. And it also connects me to the who I'm doing it for. You know, this thing that we're building is bigger than me, right? And I have teams and I have to, I don't have to, but I get the opportunity to be who I get to be for them and for this idea, right? And in that space, what I recognize is I let coherence do what force can never do, right? And I watch this, happen again and again. And what I know is when I stop interfering, when I stop trying to control timing or the how or explain things too early or, you know, try to make movements happen when it's forcing something or, just be out of alignment, basically. What happens is partnership shows up. Conversations that I didn't expect show up. Opportunities show up, they surface, and these are things that I really didn't plan for. This whole journey that I'm on right now is definitely nothing that I planned for. Okay. All right. And it's not because I stopped working, right? But because I stopped letting the past identity run my present being. It's a work, y'all. It's a work, and we have to work in that. And we have to work at discipline in this season. And trust me, hey, I'm not the greatest at it, and I'm learning. I continue to learn as myself continue to get pulled forward to the future. Okay. And you can do it too, right? You can do it too. And we actually have tools for you. All right. So let me just kind of land the plane for you. And so I want to just kind of just bring a practice in because I don't want this just to be a conversation. I want this to be a conversation with purpose and something that you can take with you from these conversations and apply them to your life so that you can begin to see who you're becoming, right? So you can become aware in the awareness, all right? So between now and next Friday, I want you to run a very simple practice, all right? So when you feel that pull towards what's next and you feel resistance showing up at the same time, just don't argue with it, but definitely don't obey it. And what I would just say is what I do in my life is just name it. Just name what's happening. Just say it straight out. This is what's happening, right? Because the past identity is really, truly at that moment trying to interpret a future it can't manage. That's what happens with old identities. They get left behind, right? And they feel abandoned and they feel like they got to control. Okay. So just know that the past identity, when that emotion comes up, it's trying to interpret a future that it cannot manage. That's all, right? Right? That's it. And then ask yourself, what would it look like to respond from alignment instead of trying to control the outcome? That question right there, I ask that question to myself all the time. And it really shifts and changes the way that I move, and I get to operate in a different way of being that's aligned towards my future self in the future that I'm creating. Right. And I wouldn't be on this podcast. I wouldn't be on this TDJ Live to put my life out there if I wasn't really about it. And I think the people that are around me can attest to who I'm becoming, and I love it. So I want the same for you. Okay, I want the same for you, and I know that just as a people, that we want some of the same things. Beyond survival, we want the dream. We want to live the lives that we see for ourselves. And it can happen. There's just going to take some work. That's all. Just a little bit of work. All right. So if you want support in all of that, between these lives, oh, well, looks like I froze a little bit. If you want support between these lives, I want to point you out to the Empower Path. It's designed for moments like this when you're building a new identity and the old way of operating keeps trying to take take the wheel, right? It's trying to take the wheel, right? So the first chapter is free, right? And it's there to help you stay oriented and do the real work within this week, all right? Not just to listen to a live and go back to the same patterns, right? So I'm going to put the link here so that you can check it out. There it goes. Check out that link. Click on that link. It's actually clickable. So if you click on this link here, it will take you straight directly to the page where you can get that first chapter of the Empowered Path. Okay, and I'll put the link in the description as well. If you don't click on it, I'll put it up one more time here. There you go.